This is episode 4 of 2019. 100 grand.
Yo, that intro was a little whack, but I'm gonna let you ride with it. Because it's early in the morning. I ain't got no time to try.
Listen, man, we're just doing our best out here, trying to be the best that we can be.
That's exactly right. Yo, you were telling me something about Kanye, something really interesting that was actually all over the social medias recently.
Yeah, I was seeing that. So we watched the video on Hip Hop DX. Basically, Kanye West. Some interesting things going on between him and his publishing company, EMI. Basically, it appears that he can't get out of the contract, bro.
And it supposedly is like set for life, so he can never ever. We were watching like details on some of the formalities with the contract, and it said he can't even take a hiatus. So I was thinking like maybe he could take a break, a vacation, something, but he can't do any of that kind of stuff. He has to make music for life. It almost feels like, it's. I don't want to use that term, but you become a slave to the label because you're never out of that contract. So I'm guessing he's trying to fight for his life to get out of it, right? That's what's happening.
That's what I'm hearing. Apparently, him and his team are working towards getting out of that contract. He's been signed to the contract since 2003, and apparently he has to work at a certain rate that he was working at in the past, and any rate that he doesn't work at, apparently they have an issue with that, and they feel like he's contractually obligated to fulfill basically the rate of work that they want him to, which is interesting. But on another side of the coin, this is a good example for aspiring artists to look at. Like, you got to really be looking at your papers, right?
I was going to ask you that. You think he saw that when he first signed his contract years ago, or he just spotted it now? What do you honestly? Because he seems like a really smart guy, although he's a little crazy and shout out sometimes. You think he actually read that at the beginning of his contract signing?
I believe Kanye West is a very smart guy. You know what? What can you say? Like,
did he sign? Do you think he knew what he was signing?
It's hard to call. I think I'm gonna say I think he did know, but maybe he didn't know the gravity of it.
Of how deep and how serious it was.
He didn't know like how serious they'd really take it. Like, maybe he thought like, once he reaches a certain point, once he reaches a certain point of success, that maybe it wouldn't be as serious. But the thing I would have to say though is maybe back then he wasn't as successful as he is now.
Yeah.
So he probably felt once he got to a certain level, he didn't have to pump out as much material. But they're like, nah, you got to keep pumping this level of material out, right? Because isn't it true that sometimes when you get to a certain status, you don't have to release as much content? Like, for instance, like Eminem, he doesn't have to release stuff every month or every week or every other. Like, he could literally like take a year off, even in the social media era, because his name is so strong and his name captivates so many people. And that's the same thing with Kanye West. Kanye West is one of those artists where Kanye could take a year off without releasing an album.
Yeah,
right?
and I think he has before. I think what happens is he's so creative and free with how he makes music and all these other stuff like the shoes and the clothing. And then he's like, man, I'm free in all these other areas. Why not the prime thing that got me here, music? Why can't I be expressive and free in that? And I think to some degree the label does have control of what he releases and stuff. I don't know what the formalities are of his contract. I'm just saying, because usually it happens like that. When you start out and you don't really have nothing and a label comes alongside of you and pumps all this money into you.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing at this point he's already paid them back a couple of times over.
Good point.
So now it's like, okay, I made y'all money. It's been more than 7 years that he's been under this actual contract. So he's like, yo, maybe. And you know what I think it is too? I think it's because there's so many dope independent artists that are just doing it and not having to be locked down to anyone, and they can free range work with anybody.
No restrictions.
Collab with whoever and still be amazing at what they do. So like, I know he's working on stuff with Chance the Rapper. So just let's take his scenario. Although I don't think he's binded contractually like how Yeezy is by any kind of stretch. But I'm just saying, like, because you're older now, you know the game, you're seeing it, and you're like, wow, all these people are free. I'm one of the dopest in the game. Why don't I have that kind of freedom? And eventually, I know some of the debate is because he wants to own some of his masters too.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of both. So everybody's doing that now. Like everybody, I know Ciara's husband, the football player, what's his name, Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson from the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, he just bought like all her masters. Everybody wants to control their own stuff.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I think Yeezy, in a way, Kanye is like, yo, I gotta, you know what I mean? I need to go ahead and own everything. Because, of course, he is a trendsetter. And I think, so I got to give it to him. But he's going to take an L somewhere. Like
that's what Michael Jackson did. He owned so much publishing.
Yep.
They were saying that he owned like the Beatles. He owned, he owned like the Beatles catalog.
That's right,
you heard about that, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's a big thing these days where artists want to own publishing. But with Kanye West, let's see how this goes.
Yeah, and I think like because of the fact that what some of the things he said with his political stance on like TMZ and him
caused a lot of controversy.
Yeah, it goes sort of against totally of what he's binded to.
Yeah,
where he's saying everybody should be free, be liberal, be this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, he said a lot of crazy statements lately.
Yeah, and then to be locked down on this contract, people are pointing the finger like
they're saying you're not living up to what you were saying, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
I can see that.
Rockstyle.
I can see that.
But you are right. Time will tell exactly on what happens with his music career. I think he'll be let out. I think it'll cost him some money. They might shorten it and give him a year or two to finish more albums, and then he's out. But I think eventually he will get out some way, somehow. 2
interesting facts. He apparently, this contract, if it was to go to the extreme, it could last like 35 years, right? From what we heard in the hip hop.
That's ridiculous, bro.
Right? That is ridiculous. But apparently, I heard like they have so much leverage, they probably won't be able to pull that off. But apparently, like there's like a chance they could.
Yeah.
And then second, Kanye had a huge 2018. He was producing for everyone. There was like a Kid Cudi project he released. He released the Ye. Remember the Ye project?
Yeah.
He released. He produced all the Pusha T's album, which got nominated for a Grammy. Kanye really put in work last year. And that's all connected to EMI. So he's putting in work for them.
Yeah, he is putting in work. He's gonna take an L somewhere though. He's either gonna have to give some of his masters away. Something is gonna be given so he can get out of there and be pretty much done with it. It's going to be a long battle, but eventually these artists are able to sort of get out of a contract, especially if he's made them so much money to this point. So
they've both benefited. They've both done well.
Yeah. So we'll
see what happens.
See. But it's going to be interesting because, Kanye never leaves quietly. There's always a long statement or something radical that has to happen to hear what he's doing.
I'm sure it's coming.
Wait for it.